I work at a hotel in Chicago. It's super old and has a bunch of crazy history behind it. A lot of the third shift staff have crazy stories that happened to them or someone they were working with that night. I love hearing all the different tales, and I've always been open to different possibilities of what happened, paranormal or not. I think of how many people could have passed away there for one reason or another throughout the years. Everything to senior citizens to suicides or violence can happen at busy hotels. That and old buildings have been dated, ventilation systems or plumbing, so there's bound to be weird sounds. I do security there, so we get to walk around freely and explore while on patrols. So I pick up an overnight shift for one of the guys, and I'm walking around on the 24th floor. It's laid out like this. Picture an upside-down T. At the intersection of the lines, there's a bathroom. The hallway going left leads to a roof, and the hallway to the right leads down a long hallway to another roof door. Going straight leads you to an elevator bank on your left. I'm walking from the elevator bank back towards the bathroom, and I clearly hear someone inside. It sounds like voices, but I thought, realistically, more like someone just watching a video on their phone at high volume. Just a mix of frequencies, and I couldn't really make anything of what was being said. While I'm walking closer to the bathroom, I look to my right facing south and see a white plastic bag on the ground facing the bathroom. I make my way towards the bag. I crouch down and open it up, and I see an apple, a few oranges, and a banana. Homeless and mental illness vagrants are an issue in the area, so I call my supervisor to meet me up there. I think there could possibly be one in the bathroom up here, and somehow they got up using the fire escape or a main stairwell, which is unlikely. It's also worth mentioning that the roof doors go on both north and south and are alarmed. None had gone off. As I made my way back towards the bathroom, I heard the elevator ding, and my supervisor comes out to meet me accompanied by my manager. Safety in numbers kind of thing. So we're quiet and I hand motion them to get a little closer towards the bathroom. I point to my ear and towards them, and they confirm they could hear it too. So we put gloves on, which is normal. Don't want to make contact with anything you don't have to. I go and open the door, and all of a sudden it's quiet. There's only a single stall right next to a urinal in the sink. The toilet/urinal don't have auto flush sensors, and the hand dryer dispenser's paper towel is not electric. I do a double take in the bathroom and look back to the guys. They have a curious look on their face too. We're all surprised at how quiet it just got. I'm walking out of the bathroom towards the white plastic bag. I thought there was a homeless person up here because it sounded like a video on a phone. And there was fruit in this bag. Check it out. I open it and it's all rotten. The oranges look blue with white hairs and everything is just discolored. The banana looks super black and everything grossed me out. And it caught me by surprise. I dropped the bag because of a what the fuck moment. I look over to the guys and my supervisor walks towards the elevators and is like, screw this, I'm out of here. My manager kind of laughs and he's like, is this your first time being spooked? He's a 20-year-old guy and the way he said it made it sound so common. I picked up the bag and threw it away just before we all got to the elevator and left. I haven't been able to explain what happened. We all heard the same thing, and then it was gone. There are stranger stories, I'm sure, but that's all that happened to me while I've been there. It's pretty wild that no alarms were tipped in the area, and entry by elevator wasn't available either. This floor is secluded, and has restricted access to it. You have to have the dispatch officer send you via elevator, or send it up on an independent mode. Doors were secured too, and fire escapes were alarmed as well. The stairwells require key access. I still go up there and haven't experienced anything like that since. Every now and again I'll look behind me because I just want to make sure nobody's there. I get an odd vibe now and again, but it doesn't feel super bad or terrifying. It's a really cool building with a lot of different history and stories.
I have been reading this subreddit for a while now, and thankfully I've never experienced anything like what others have written. until a few days ago. For reference, I am a 20-year-old Hooters girl and encounter creepy guys all the time, but never like this. I occasionally get asked for my number and to go on dates by older men, but always politely turn them down without really upsetting anyone. I was working the night shift the other night and had a 40-something-year-old man sit at my table by himself. I greeted him the same way I greet all customers. Lots of smiling, laugh at their jokes, ask about his or her day. He was really irritated and didn't seem to want to talk to me at all, so I assumed he was there to eat and go without all the chatting customers, except for the waitresses. I offered a box and dessert at the end of his meal, but he just paid and got up to leave. When I brought back his change, he grabbed my arm and pulled me close and said, "I want you so badly," before letting go and walking out the door. I was so uncomfortable that I just stood there until he left. This was around 8 p.m., so I told the other girls, then got over it. We close at midnight on weekdays, so by the time I was ready to go, it was about 1:30 a.m. I carry a stun gun in my bag and normally have someone walk me to my car, but it was so late that nearly everyone had already left, and those that were still there were busy trying to clean up, so they couldn't leave. I had parked right in front of the doors, leaving my car only 5 feet away, so I decided to quickly get in my car without being walked. I always lock my doors out of habit and went to check my phone, which was dead. I have one of those crappy chargers in my car that only charge at a certain angle, and was trying to get my phone to charge when a truck pulled up behind me, blocking me in. I couldn't pull forward because the restaurant was in front of me, and I couldn't back up because of this truck. At first I thought it was my roommate who will sometimes come check on me if I get home too late to make sure I'm okay. It was a silver truck, which is what my roommate drives, but when I turned to look at it, it was a different model, which made my heart sink. This person then proceeded to honk their horn at me over and over for a good 5 minutes, trying to get me out of my car. When I refused, he pulled up next to me and started knocking on my window and yelled at me to get out of my car. It was the same guy that was at my table 5 hours earlier. My phone wouldn't turn on, so I switched it into reverse and fast and furious my way out of the parking lot. He started following me with his truck, so I ran a red light and started speeding. He stopped at the light, and I drove for a bit before going home in case he caught up and tried following me to my house. I checked my car when I got home in case he hit my car, but I didn't see any marks. I don't know whether he was trying to rob me or kidnap me, but creepy man who waited 5 hours in the parking lot for me, I really hope we never meet again.
I was around 16 at the time, so I was commencing at a new secondary school. During my early days attending this new educational facility, I met this rather charming we can refer to as Jacob. Even though Jacob was quite enticing, he seemed to show an unsettling amount of quirkiness. Not the quirkiness you'll see in those nerdy people whose Marvel comic books like me, but the quirkiness that'll make you think that this particular person will be a potential serial killer. Being the pushover ad, overly friendly person I was, I put that aside and became friends with him. One Saturday afternoon, Jacob invited me to stay at his place. I didn't have anything else to do, so I accepted the invitation. Around 20 minutes later, he picked me up and took me to his place, since he was able to drive. Upon arrival at his house, I took a look at the property. It was out in the brush, a big property with the main house which his parents and sister live, and a granny flat down 10 meters from the main house where Jacob lives by himself. I checked my phone for the time. It was around 5 in the evening, and I noticed that I had no reception, which is strange because Telstra, the phone company I'm with, is very good with their reception, and normally I can get decent signals when I'm out in the brush when I go to see family. I thought I was in a setting for a classic horror movie, but I humorously brushed it off my mind. Once we settled into his place, in his kitchen/living room, he went off to have a shower. As I heard the water being turned on in his bathroom, I thought I should do a little bit of snooping around. Nothing too privacy invading, just to look at the decor in his place and see what his room is like. In the midst of me snooping, I saw various things. His old jersey, when he used to play rugby, a few artworks he did since he's an art student, and a photo booth style photo of him and his ex, which I actually got kind of jealous about, since I had feelings for him back then. The creepy part though was his room. I stepped into his room and at first it seemed normal. A bed with a nightstand, a desk with high-tech computer and a camera, stuff like that. But as I looked around in his room, I saw a half-open drawer on his nightstand and it caught my attention. As I looked into the drawer, I noticed something that sparked up red alarms. A big, sharp butcher's knife, rope, BDSM-style handcuffs, and a bottle of something that I knew wasn't lube. I tried to brush it off as Jacob just being kind of kinky, but something in me knew there was something fishy going on. Maybe because of rumors I heard at school about him doing some sort of fucked up shit. At first I ignored them, but now I was starting to believe those rumors. Shortly after I heard the shower turn off, I sprinted my ass back to where I was before he had gotten in the shower, and I acted like I was trying to get reception. He came out of the bathroom, dried and dressed. He made an amusing remark about the reception here as he walked up behind to where I was sitting, and expectantly hugged me and scooped me up bridal style and carried me into his bedroom. These sudden actions have made a mini anxiety attack, and a little bit fearful for my life. As he placed me on his bed, Jacob proceeded to go to his tripod next to his desk and prop his camera up on it, directed it towards my direction. This made my brain say, "Get the fuck out of here," as my heart was pounding in fear. Thinking that he was going to rape me or murder me and film the whole thing on his camera and put it on the deep web, since he told me that he visits the deep web frequently. Luckily, in these situations, I was always smart enough to escape, so I pretended to read a text from my mom saying that I needed to come home. I lied to him that my mom wanted me to come home and said that she'll pick me up. I apologized for my unforeseen leave and gave my goodbyes before I calmly walked out of the door and rushed off his property once I was out of his granny flat. As I was 1 to 2 streets away, I called my next door neighbor to pick me up, since my mom was out of town that night. Once my friend picked me up, I told her some made-up story, which is why I was here, and she took me home. Ever since that incident, I was scared of Jacob and lessened my time talking to him. After he graduated, I blocked him on all my contacts and never talked to him again. That night was the most fearful night I've ever experienced. After that, I don't go to guys' places that live on their own.
I've been a reader of this subreddit for a while now, and I decided I'd like to share my story with you all. Bear with me though, as I usually tell this story in an ironic, joking way to my friends, not in a serious way. Now, I've always been a very weak young lady, emotionally and physically. To put it into perspective, I was 15 years old at the time, 5 foot tall and very weak. Still am. This happened in May 2015. On to the actual story. I was always a very introverted girl, and all of my close friends were over the internet, and I was dating a lovely young man from Scotland. I lived in the south of England at the time, and after 5 months of dating, I'd finally get to meet him in person. I knew he was a legitimate person, but being the anxious ball of nerves I am, I made sure to do it in a very public place. He was exactly who I knew him as, and was not the one who tried to kidnap me on that day. He had to catch the train back to London where he was staying late that evening, and I, knowing the area like the back of my hand, and having walked around it thousands of times before at a much younger age, walked him back to the train station, and said my very tearful goodbyes to the boy I loved. I left, crying, not knowing when I'd see him again, and made my way toward the bus stop that'd take me home. That was, until a very tall Indian man, about 6 foot and roughly in his 40s, came up to me as I was crossing the street and hugged me. Now, I was beside myself with sorrow at my love's departure, and that hug made me cry even more. Despite all the red flags going off in my head, people in this area had been known to be quite friendly, even with strangers, and I just had to pray he was one of them. He took one of my hands and held my wrist so I could not walk away. I began to panic at this point, too weak to break the man's hold on me, too choked up to call for help. He asked me what was wrong and told me, "A sweetheart like you shouldn't be on the streets crying. Come with me. I can make it all better." I immediately declined, saying that I just had to say goodbye to my boyfriend and that I just wanted to go home. He wouldn't let go of my wrist after that and tightened his grip to a painful amount. He told me he would give me things that would make me feel better, that I needed to come with him. I continuously declined, praying someone would walk down the street, and to my luck, nobody did. The man eventually started demanding that I give him a kiss, and he'd let me go. Keep in mind, I only just had my first kiss with a boy I loved earlier that day, and now I was being made to kiss this disgusting man, or else who knows what would have happened to me. I did, as much as I hated it with every bone in my body, and he did let me go, to my surprise. I hurried away from him and ran as fast as I could to the bus stop, immediately calling my boyfriend and telling him what happened. He still beats himself up to this day about it, saying he should have made sure I got home safe first. I always tell him there's no way he could have known that would happen, and having walked that route so many times in the past, I didn't think that something like that would ever happen to me. It still troubles me to this day, and I'm still very nervous going anywhere alone. Granted, I use the event as a comedic point towards the common statement, never meet strangers off the internet, but the whole ordeal definitely makes me very uncomfortable still. Man on the street, I don't know what your intentions were with me that day, but I never want to know or find out, so let's not ever meet again. First time posting here, looking for input or advice. This happened to me about 8 years ago in college. I was on my way home from work one night when I stopped at McDonald's to grab some food for the way home. I decided to go inside to order rather than sit in line for the drive-thru. There was no one inside, as it was pretty late, after midnight for sure. I had ordered and was standing off to the side waiting for my food when I felt like someone was watching me. I can't explain it. It was such an oppressive feeling. I quickly turned around to try to find the source, but still the building was empty. Then I noticed them, 2 men, pale skin, yet black hair and piercing eyes in the drive-thru. Their mouths contorted in some kind of smile and their eyes, unblinking, locked on me. I couldn't look away. I felt as if I had seen them before, as if I had experienced something like this before. It was a deja vu moment. I was able to break my gaze and turn away, but I kept them in my peripherals. I could tell they were still looking at me. The driver would turn to the passenger and laugh before turning back to me. I paid attention to what they had ordered. Waters. Seriously? Just waters? Not even the bottled water that you have to pay for? Just cups of water. After the attendant gave them the cups, they continued to stare in my direction. She became confused and turned around. I caught eyes with her. I could tell she was kind of freaked out too, and I think she could tell I was uncomfortable. She asked them to move along as they were holding up the line. As they drove away, they drove past the windows very slowly, staring at me with the same grin that seemed so familiar to me, before leaving the parking lot. I decided to stay and eat my meal instead of leaving. I racked my brain trying to figure out why that whole experience seemed so familiar to me. Something about 2 men in a car, at night, staring. Then it hit me. I honestly panicked when I remembered. I had seen them when I was about 9 years old. I knew it was them. It was late one night. My room was on the 2nd floor and my window looked out to our driveway. It was warm out, so I had my window open. I remember hearing a car pull into the driveway. I thought maybe it was my dad leaving early for work, but then I realized it was 2 a.m. I pulled back my curtains to see who it was that was at my house so late. Then I saw them, the same 2 men I had just encountered. They quickly noticed me in my window and smiled before backing out and driving back down the road with no headlights on. I was sitting there trying to convince myself that I was just putting 2 different experiences together in my head. I was trying to find a logical explanation for what had just happened. I still can't explain it. I didn't tell anyone about either experience for several years. Recently, my dad and I were talking about strange stories that happened to us. He said when he was younger, he would tell his parents that there were 2 men watching him. He said he was about 5. He went as far as walking outside and point to the sky when my grandparents asked him where these men were. I couldn't believe it. Were these experiences connected? Were they the same men? My mind flooded with the memories of my own encounters. I told my dad both stories and how in each one there were 2 men watching me. We still can't explain it. Has anyone heard or experienced anything similar? I've only told 2 people this. Now I'm telling everybody. I have no choice, it's consuming me. My brother believed me. He was sure it was someone physically messing with me. My son believed me. When after 800 hours of research I came up with my invisible Bigfoot theory. Now he too is scared of the forest. Personally, I'm leaning towards demons, aliens, or cloaked military forces. It was another beautiful fall day. I had the day off of work and I had just moved into a new home in an area I had grown up in. It was nice to be back in the old neighborhood, close to great hiking trails, creeks, and the waterfall. I took off down the old Indian trail I knew like the back of my hand. As children, all the neighborhood kids played in the creek and forest. As teenagers, we spent every summer day there and night. When my children were young, I had them there every weekend. As teenagers, they as well hung out there with their neighborhood friends. When I reach the end of the steep trail which stops at the creek, I sit on the rocks, lay back, take a break, and stare at the sky. It was a perfect blue and yellow day, not one cloud in the sky, and the sun shining proudly on the world. I thought about that as I was sitting there just relaxing, contemplating life. I was thinking what a beautiful, perfect place we live in. We have it all. I stood up to walk along the creek to reach the waterfall at the end. I took a few steps and stopped. I just stood there, frozen. Looking in front of me, there was nothing. I stood still there. I couldn't go any further. I could sense something. Then this overwhelming thought came into my mind, loud and clear. It said,
"You're not perfect. Humans will always have fear. Fear will destroy you."
Something made me run. I was overcome with fear like I have never felt in my life. Something was there I couldn't see. It was chasing me. I ran back the way I came at top speed. Panic speed. Run for your life speed. Yes, it was chasing me. I heard steps. Not like normal steps, but like little rocks or stones lightly landing on the forest floor without rolling or rustling the leaves. As I'm running back up the trail, I glance back. I see nothing. Still running in a panic, I start to think this is ridiculous. I don't scare easy. I stop on the trail, turn around and stand looking. Within a split second, I could still hear the steps following me, yet I can't see anything unusual. I run and reach the top. I'm 5 minutes from home. I run home and make it, and soon afterwards, I call my brother. Of course my brother believed me. He could hear the fear in my voice. He was quite sensible about the whole thing. He suggested that it was teenagers fooling around like we used to all those years ago, or he suggested it might be a creepy man who was watching me. I agreed with him but knew different. I must be losing my mind. I go see my priest. I can't tell him. I tell him I'm stressed and not sleeping well. I tried a little to veer the conversation towards souls and spirits. He resisted. I left, convinced there is something wrong with me. I go to see my doctor. I couldn't tell him the real story. What if he said I was schizophrenic? I had a full physical. Now I can't sleep. My perfect, content life seems rattled by something I have no idea what it could be. I lose my job and new house. I don't walk anymore. I used to walk 2 hours a day. My friends and family don't call anymore. A year later in my new home, I start to search for answers on the internet. I'm not the only one. I find things similar to my experience. Dave's missing 411. Stephen Hawking claims to have caught one in 1973. What is this? I've traveled the world, backpacked and hiked where people don't go. I camp alone. I have no fear. I'm a world traveler. How has this topic eluded me for this long? I've wanted to contact someone for so long, but honestly, who could you tell this to? The Bigfoot hunters I've looked into are all shit. Dave P. seems reputable, but how do I contact him? I wonder if a hypnotist could find more info in me than I can recall. I've tried to write this 100 times but couldn't. I have to now see if it will promote change. Something did communicate with me that day and chased me out of the forest in a feeling of pure dread. I don't know if I'll ever be the same.
I've honestly been debating about posting this for a while. And in all honesty, I think I'll search for answers about what happened to me for the rest of my life. Solid answers just don't seem to exist for things like this. I guess a little background. I've had sleep paralysis many times before. I know what it feels like and how terrifying it can be. I've had a history of night terrors, but my sleep has been very peaceful since I moved in with my now husband around August of 2015. This alone shows me that there's a strong psychological side to everything, since I'm much better headspace than I was before. I was very stressed out around the times these things happened. Excuses aside, I'll copy some interesting bits I have saved from a journal that I keep. January 20th, 2015, around 2 to 4 a.m. from my Facebook message. Well, I had an experience last night, and you might be interested in hearing it. I was having a nightmare of a haunted mansion that kept shifting and moving its walls, kind of like that Stephen King novel. In my dream, I was working for a maid service and was employed to clean up some goo off the walls and clean it off the items in the pantry and the kitchenette, kind of like a bar kitchen inside of a home theater room. One whole wall was a fish tank. It glowed blue and had a dark feel to it. So I was cleaning the goo off some cups and a can of chicken, and suddenly these items were in my hand as I was warped to a safe place. I was worried in my dream about evil spreading from these, so I tried to take care of containing them, but one slipped out of my hand, disappeared, and then my new environment grew dark as well. The experience was horrifying. Now here's the interesting part. I woke up in real life. I was conscious of my own room and my cat resting next to me. The moon was full, and I could see well in the dark room. I then noticed to my right a short, shimmering, childlike figure. It was kind of the shape of, laughably, those Sour Patch Kid gummies, with the odd bumps on the head. It was see-through, but kind of looked like it was using a stealth boy from the game Fallout. It was maybe 4 feet tall. It was peering at me curiously. I was alarmed and scared, but not completely terrified, like I had been in the past of the taller, looming dark figures that come with sleep paralysis. I tried to pull the cover over my head, but it was stuck on something at the bottom of the bed, so I could only get it halfway over the right side of my face. Then, another figure that looked the same, might have been the same one, sat on my bed to the left side and started pulling the cover away from my face. I sat bolt upright and started trying to talk to the cat, and that's when they disappeared. I jumped up and turned the lights on, and Dusty, my cat, walked up next to my head and laid on the pillow and kept following things with his eyes. Similar to what cats do when they see bugs flying in the air. He also started peering directly through the window after that. Then there was a strange yipe noise that came from the floor, and he jumped at attention to it. I couldn't go back to sleep until he seemed relaxed, which was about an hour and a half, at 4 a.m. I told this to my boyfriend, now husband, whose opinion I value above any other, yet I try to take it with a grain of salt and not let it alter my own thoughts. He suggested that perhaps it was trying to tell me something, whether it was real or a manifestation of my consciousness, and I shouldn't have chased it off. My first thought of a solution was maybe I just experienced another case of sleep paralysis, but the fact that I turned over to hide and pull the covers above my head meant that I could move, and I wasn't paralyzed. It didn't feel like sleep paralysis at all. So if anything, it was a form of hypnagogia. February 7th, 2015, 6:45 a.m., the evening before, on the 6th of February, my sister's door opened by itself. Occasionally the doorknob will jiggle, and sometimes we feel like someone's trying to come in when we're in the room, but this is the first time it opened by itself. It naturally swings open if it's not latched, so she always latches it while we're inside. She texted me about it, afraid to come out of her room, so I stormed down the hallway, a crazy ball of anger. I don't want anything messing with my sister. Everything felt normal. Perhaps this could be explained, but maybe not. We left the house. Added note, things like this happened occasionally. We would see human figures out of the corner of our vision or hear strange voices. Things would happen to us separately in the house as well as collectively. But all of these haunting-esque stories I have are just so generic I don't want to bother you fine people with it. Although it might be worth mentioning that years later my sister described a thing she caught watching her years ago that matches the description of my shimmering Sour Patch Child figure. That night, the same being visited me. I'm not completely sure if it was the same, besides the fact I just knew it felt the same, as if I felt its aura or presence and knew who it was. This is yet again something that I can't solidify in my mind or completely understand. It makes no sense. As I lie there, this time instead of becoming afraid and yelling at it, I decided to ask what it wanted from me. I tried to be brave and show no fear. Without hesitation, the being leaned down and touched my stomach, which lasted maybe a minute long. I've never felt anything like that before. It was like being shocked with a very low level of electricity, but without the pain. The feeling was in the general area of my stomach and reached a little into my chest and lower torso. I felt a gentle sort of tingling, but I didn't feel anything solid from the figure, such as its fingertips or any pressure on my body. It tickled and made me convulse just a little, and I felt my spine arching as if my belly was floating upwards. My first unaltered thought was that it may have been trying to take my energy. As this was happening, I was too confused to react, and I didn't feel directly threatened, so I didn't try to freak out. After this, it turned around and walked away, as if the job was done. It seemed world-weary, like it doesn't want to be here, but it had a job to do. The whole experience was neutral. I'm not sure what any of this means, if it means anything at all. I didn't even try to go back to sleep that night. Phew. Maybe someone has a similar story? I was a skeptic of anything paranormal until things started happening to me naturally.
Two Christmases ago, I was having a cigarette out in Alexandria, Minnesota on my mom's property. It's not that far from an airport, so it's not that uncommon to see low-flying airplanes now and then over the farm. But that night I saw a bright light in the sky, and it moved slowly towards the direction of the airport, and the light was so bright I couldn't see its shape. It was strangely quiet, and so the first thing I thought to do was get my phone out and video it. I thought I was in video mode, but I was in camera mode. I took a blurry picture and then switched it to video mode, but the screen froze up, like it was taking a pic or trying to buffer or catch up. My phone froze and I had to restart it, but by the time it restarted, it was so far away. It looked like it was going to land at the airport, so I thought it probably wasn't a UFO. Anyways, that night I posted a long Facebook post trying to be funny, saying that I saw a UFO but I couldn't get it on video on time, and that it was probably a conspiracy and probably why no videos of UFOs exist. It was all tongue-in-cheek, but it still weirded me out. It was so quiet for an airplane, but it was going to the airport, and I don't think aliens land at small airports, so I rationalized it away. I came back to LA for New Year's, and New Year's Eve morning I got a knock on my apartment door. I looked through the peephole and saw this creepy guy wearing a Mad Men-era hat and suit, like a creepy bald Don Draper. I pretended I wasn't home, but then he said,
FBI, open up please, we know you're in there.
His voice, though, sounded like either he was very old or someone had kicked him in the neck, and he was out of breath. It's hard to explain, but the only thing I could say is that the voice sounded fake, like someone was doing an impression of a grandpa, only doing a really bad job at it. The FBI thing scared me. I had no reason to be, but the first thing that came into my mind was that I had downloaded the first season of Game of Thrones to see what the fuss was about, and I had used a torrent site. And while I was there, I had searched for a weird porno to see what torrents had, and I remember following the rabbit hole and reading a bunch of weird descriptions of weird movies. I didn't download any, but I had clicked on them and clicked on a preview image to one out of curiosity. I thought maybe he thought I downloaded the porn or it was about Game of Thrones. I started getting anxious. He pounded on the door some more and it freaked me out even more, so I said, "Can I see some identification?" and looked through the peephole and he pulled out a badge. But it could have been a toy for all I knew. But he knew I was there. So I opened the door and prayed he wasn't a rapist, and that if it was an FBI agent I could lie my way out of having downloaded Game of Thrones and reading weird porn descriptions. He was very scary looking, old-timey clothes, no eyebrows, 2 lazy eyes, bald, wrinkled forehead and neck. I almost peed myself. He said to me,
I need to talk to you about the flying saucer you saw on the 22nd of December.
This weirded me out more because my Facebook is private and I posted no pictures. And I thought about the Snowden guy and how we are being watched, and it really freaked me out. I asked him how he knew and he said,
FBI knows everything, ma'am.
And he walked through my doorway about 4 feet in and stopped. And that's where we had the remainder of our conversation. I told him the story and he was emotionless and expressionless the whole time. The next part always makes me laugh when I think about it, but at the time it was just so out of left field, it completely tripped me out. He asked,
Do your breasts produce milk?
I just said, no, I'm not pregnant, and hoped this wasn't a rapey pass he was making at me.
They're big but have no function,
he said, like a statement. I changed the subject back to the UFO and said, so was it a flying saucer that I saw? Was it aliens? He said,
No such things as aliens. Forget about the incident.
He then asked,
Do you think you have a theory as to why female people look so different from male people?
I was just weirded out more, but tried to play it off. Interesting question. I sometimes wonder why our bathing suits are small and guys' bathing suits are so big. He then said,
Do you think that bathing is the first step in controlling our evolution?
I was just like, sure, man. I wanted him out and it was creepy, but I wanted to be nice and not set him off. Then shit got even weirder. He just went silent, and I was silent. It was like he ran out of batteries. I kept smiling at him and he was not smiling back. Can I help you with anything else? I'd love to help, blah blah blah, just nervous babbling.
Flying saucers don't exist. Don't talk about it.
Okay, I won't.
I can't seem to find the door.
This was even weirder. It was just behind him. So I thought he must be joking and I smiled and said it was right behind him. Can you show me? So then I tried to lead him to the door. He wouldn't turn his neck, but I got him to turn his whole body around, but it was like pulling teeth. Are you okay? Should I call the hospital?
I just get stuck.
Not got or get stuck sometimes, it was just, I just get stuck. Which I thought was weird at the time, but now that I'm typing it, I guess it makes more sense. He then walked out. I closed the door as fast as I could. My heart was beating so fast I was replaying everything in my head so I can get the story down. Some of it made me laugh, but I was so creeped out. I told my mom. She said he must have been on drugs. Over the years, I've told some people this story. I've heard FBI agents don't investigate UFO sightings, or maybe a friend was playing a joke on me, but nobody ever comments on how unearthly he looked. They just assume he's human. To me, the more I think about it, the less human I think he is. I have other creepy encounters as well that I might post here, but I'll write this one first since it's the most current one. It happened over 2 hours ago and I'm still contemplating whether or not I should call the cops. First off, you need to know that I live in a poor Eastern European country, in a big city but in a bad neighborhood. At least that's what I've been told. I've never actually encountered any creepy individuals that would want to do me any harm. Just your usual vandals and troublemakers, never anyone serious. I'm also still a teenager and live with my parents, but growing up in this environment, I consider myself to be quite street smart, a feature that has helped me whenever I was in trouble. It turned out to be very useful today. At about 3 p.m., my dad left for ping pong practice and I knew that he'd be back by about 8 p.m., and coincidentally, my older brother and my mom left to help out one of my friends clean up the place after a New Year's party. I should have come along, but today I felt a bit sick and decided I should stay in. That was probably the luckiest I've ever been. You'll find out why in a minute. So all of my family leaves except for me. Naturally, I've been home alone before, so that doesn't really make me uneasy at all. But having been a long-time reader of this subreddit, I take more precaution than I used to. The evening goes just like any other. I'm rewatching some episodes of Skins when suddenly I feel the urge to get a snack. Just behind my apartment complex, there is a very well-known supermarket on which I can always rely on whenever I'm in a deep need of a snack. It was like a 5-minute walk. I put on my coat and some flip-flops and I'm out. It's freezing balls outside and I could see the bright lights of the supermarket in the distance. But something was off. In front of the automatic doors there was a small, robust figure. As I got closer, I could distinguish his face. It was this man whose face I've seen before. I remember him countless times roaming around our block of flats but never actually thought anything of it. He was dressed poorly and was staying in front of the doors as he was guarding them. I asked if the supermarket was still open, and he pointed at a paper which was clipped near the schedule. It said it closed at 6 p.m. due to the holiday season. I let out a sigh and wanted to turn around to go home, but he told me in an alarmed voice that there was a very close boutique next to the supermarket. I told him that I didn't need anything important and that I would come back tomorrow, but he kept on insisting and saying it's a 2-minute walk from there, all the while staring at me in a weird manner. That was the first red flag, but I found a logical explanation in my mind, thinking that maybe the man was just very eager to help me, maybe so that I'd give him some money. That sort of made sense in my mind, but I was still alert. So I walked to the boutique and took whatever I could find fast, paid, wished the shop owner a happy new year, and left in a hurry. As time passed, I was getting more and more nervous for some reason. I guess it was just my gut telling me that something was off. What really made me switch was the fact that I had been gone for about 5 minutes, and I was passing the supermarket. The guy who was usually roaming the area was nowhere to be seen. At that point, I started jogging towards my apartment, all the while trying to calm myself and imagining plausible explanations as to why the guy was not there anymore. I got to the bottom of the stairs of the front door, and in the distance I noticed a tall, dark figure entering the elevator, and at the same time, almost planned, the automatic light switched off. I desperately ran towards the interphone and clumsily got my keys out to open the door. As I ran to the elevator, it was still running. I live on the 7th floor. I could see it go up to the 3rd, then the 4th, then the 5th, Then it stopped. I let out a big sigh of relief, but was still skeptical, so I took the stairs. As I was walking up the stairs, almost laughing, I noticed that above me, the light on the 6th floor was turned on. That was a bit odd, but I kept on walking. Suddenly, I saw the light on the 7th floor turned on and I stopped, looked above and hoped that whoever it was would go to the 8th floor. A minute passed, which felt like hours, and the light on the 7th floor was still on. I decided to take action, so I ran all the way up to my floor, and I saw something that almost made me pass out. The tall, dark figure was kneeling at my doorknob, trying to what I presumed to be lockpicking my door. In these kind of situations, I rarely get angry. I just want whatever it is going on to stop. So, from afar, I shout a very weak, "Hey!" and the guy, in an instant, turns around and stands up. I see him for a split second and he looks fucking terrifying. Long black trench coat, a hat, and leather gloves. He smiles at me and reveals his yellow, unkept teeth. He fucking smiles at me. Do you know that stomach-turning feeling when you stumble upon something that is so scarily out of this world and wrong that you can't just not look, but you want to? That was that, amplified by like 1,000. I was shitting my pants, and to my surprise, the man took off running. Before he reached the stairs, he mumbled a sorry and got away. I was still in shock and couldn't follow him or call the police, or even move for that matter. I easily got to the door of my apartment and noticed a pin was still stuck in there. Yup, he was definitely trying to get into my house. Who knows what he wanted to do? My parents won't be back for about 2 more hours, and I am not sure if I should tell them or even call the cops. Thinking in retrospect, I think this tall man and the man in front of the supermarket may have conducted a plan. It would have been all too convenient for him to catch me off guard like that. Either way, that's a scary thought. One thing is for certain, I will be keeping a bat in my room from now on. So much for New Year's resolutions. So, tall dark man that wanted to enter my home uninvited? Let's not meet. I've called my parents first, and while they were away, they said they would get home ASAP, and told me that I should call the cops right after they hang up. They told me to make sure all the doors were locked, and also they'd call a neighbor from the 2nd floor, a very nice old lady to keep me company until the police arrive. I've talked to the officer and explained the situation, and also showed him the lockpick. He took it as evidence. I also gave a detailed description of the man from the supermarket, and tried to describe the lockpicker himself, but that was still in a blur. He said that he'll leave some of his men to patrol the area. I was lucky he was very nice about it. Police here usually aren't. Hey guys, thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join the Nightmare Army. I'm always looking for new soldiers in my Nightmare Nation. And if you would like to support the Nightmare Army even further, please leave a PayPal donation if you want. And once again, I would also like to thank Holly Wizzle for helping me out with this video. You are truly awesome, my friend, and if you guys haven't, please check out Holly Wizzle's channel. I definitely think you guys will like her. So I hope everybody has a great Friday, and I hope everybody has a great weekend as well. Now guys, I don't want to talk about anything negative at the end of these videos, but because this issue has been happening so much, I know Unit already talked about it in his last video, but I want to talk about it too, just because I honestly feel like it's been the center of attention lately, and I hate that because these people are fucking morons, and you guys already know what I'm about to talk about, and it's these fake horror narration channels that take my stuff, Blue Spooky stuff, Unit stuff, Hellfreezer, pretty much everybody. To me, there is no greater disrespect than taking somebody's art and then re-uploading it and then claiming that it's yours. I can't tell you how many freaking people have messaged me saying, Joey, I feel like somebody's taking one of your stuff and re-uploading onto their channel. You have no idea how much that pisses me off. You know, not the people messaging me and saying, you know, hey, Joey, not those people. For if anything, thank you. Thank you for seeing that and then letting me know so that way I can take the channel down. It's just, oh my god, the overabundance of it lately is just fucking annoying. I mean, between the YouTube bug lately, this, and just other shit, it's like, oh my god, you know, and I have to say though, if you guys want to laugh, alright, the guy that I put a copyright on his channel because he took my shit, alright, he emailed me and said, hey man, I'm really sorry about doing this, can you please take the copyright off my channel? It won't happen again. Yeah, no, you're an idiot. Like, reap the consequences, okay? You did this, you fucked up, reap what you sow. I mean, I'm not asking YouTube to do anything about it because, unfortunately, it happens. If anything, I should take it as a compliment, I guess. But to all of you who have came to me and reported these channels, thank you so much. Seriously, thank you so much. But anyways, guys, after I got all of that out, thank you all for watching yet again, and just remember, the best ideas always come out of nightmares.